When I first went to secondary school, I did feel scared, anxious, terrified, petrified. So I was like, oh, will the teachers like me? Will the kids like me? Will they understand me? I remember that I was just completely terrified. I was absolutely on edge, scared, completely out of my depth. And when my parents woke me up, I didn't want to leave their side. I was sort of like, no, I'm not feeling safe. I felt more safe having my parents there than I did with teachers that I've never ever met before.
The story can be, it started when they started school. That's when we noticed the biggest difficulties. But actually, if you track it back, you could see there were things that were happening beforehand. They just weren't as obvious because the pressure wasn't as big. So it's that kind of capacity and demand. You know, the demand outweighs the child's capacity to cope, often when they start school. And the reason for that is because there's increased kind of cognitive pressures on the children and social pressures. And these children, because of their foundations of their house, of their wall, there's blocks missing. So they don't really have the block that means they understand how to connect socially with peers, to play, to have social imagination, to have empathy around what somebody else might be feeling. Those bits can be missing for lots of these children. Not always, it's not a generalisation, but for lots of children that is the case. And so you pop the child without some of these basic and necessary building blocks into a situation where they are expected to have them, and it's too much. And some children will manage really well at primary because there's more flexibility. The schools can be smaller. There's often high levels of nurture, which these children still really need because they didn't get enough of it when they were small. And primary schools have more scope and more availability to do that. Often the big jump we see is when children start secondary school. So, you know, parents can be lulled into a false sense of security, sadly. Actually, oh, things are going really well. I think we've dodged that. And then secondary school starts, and it's another demand too great for this child to manage.
I wasn't that bad in primary, but then once I've got into secondary, because I have to move from class to class, and then different teachers, different classmates, it's just gone harder, and I just can't really do anything or like be myself in secondary.
School plays a very, very large part in both what's overwhelming the child, but also in holding some of the answers to making things a bit easier. So there's lots of scope and opportunity for schools and education, and that's what we try and do, is think, how can we best support schools to understand what's happening for this child, and then to offer them what they need. And it's not rocket science, and it's not expensive, and it's not clever. It doesn't require loads and loads of training. It requires people understanding trauma